So I will introduce myself to the people who are watching. My name is John, and I am the service programming director at East Cobb Church. East Cobb Church is a new campus of North Point. We started as a partner church, so we were fully on our own, but because of where we're located, we're very, very close to North Point geographically. And so as we grew, North Point kind of brought us in as a campus because it didn't really make sense for us not to be. But as I was telling Matt a minute ago, we are very small as far as staff goes. I mean, congregationally, we're very small compared to North Point. We're like teeny tiny, but we're new and we're growing and we have a lot. We're building a new building and all this stuff is happening. But our staff is really small. So my job, so for service programming, like at North Point, there's probably like 9 or 10 people on staff doing all of the things because there's so much that they have to do. The systems are huge and all of it. There's 3 of us on staff at East Cobb that do service programming. There's myself, and I focus mostly on like the overall flow, service flow. I do a lot with music. Music is my main background, so I like know that the most. And then the production stuff. And I have a production director who is on staff full time, which is great because he can focus on the technical things. So when we come up with an idea or we need to like execute something, he's the guy that I can be like, hey, can you figure out how to make those things work? And he's like, yes. So it's great to have him. And then the other person we have is what we call guest experience. And her main job is to make sure that people have the best experience possible. And it's not just on Sundays. We do a lot of events. We do a lot of events in the community. We found that getting outside the church walls and doing things like, for example, Mother's Day is coming up. It's a big deal around here. We meet on Sunday afternoon. So we're going to actually cancel our church service on Sunday afternoon. And we're going to do like a Mother's Day kind of outing at like a local shopping area. And we're going to give away like free flowers and like all this stuff, have live music and stuff like that. So it's not really like church related. It's more of like community building related because we want people to know that East Cobb Church is not just a church that you come to. It's a church that like we're baked into the community. So all that is stuff that like our service programming team does. That's a lot of words, and I'm really sorry, Matt.
Well, no, that's awesome.
That's listen all that. But I just want people to know that we are not, we do not have a lot of people, and we are small, and by small we are mighty.
So it'd be good to chat about what's going on with Easter. I think that'll be something that's on everyone's mind. If you guys started planning.
Yeah. And it's cool the way Easter works around North Point. It's kind of varied through the years. It used to be that like North Point Ministries, like all the campuses would do the same thing, basically. We don't always do the same thing. Most every Sunday, the only thing that's common or shared is Andy's message. Every campus is really autonomous to do what they want. But it used to be that for Easter and a lot of times for Christmas, it would kind of be like a centralized, like they're going to create, North Point will create and we'll kind of speak into it. An opener that maybe has some video content that goes along with it. And then we might either do some of the same worship songs, or we may do different songs, but then there'll probably be some sort of like message title package, Andy, and there's probably some closer. In the past though, and this year is a good example, I think there's 3 campuses that are doing all the same thing. And then the rest are doing their own thing completely. Like everything is on their own. Andy is even like, hey, local lead pastors, if you don't want me to speak, like if you want to speak yourself, like to preach, go for it. So like at our campus, our pastor will preach on Easter, which I think is great. And then for us, what we're specifically doing is we're kind of doing a hybrid. We're taking some of the things that North Point's creating and using it. And I'm kind of waiting until I get them and see them and figuring out like how I fit it together. So I kind of have a rough idea of what our service will look like, but I didn't love, which we can talk about this in a second. I personally didn't love, and our team didn't love, the opener that they had put together because it felt a little slow for us. And the main reason for us is we have to do Easter at an offsite location because we meet in someone else's church. So we have to like literally go load into some like school theater And because of that, we don't have kids ministry. So everybody comes to the service together. So all there's kids, and it's like a whole family thing, which is super cool, actually. But a lot of times, like the more introspective, like crucifixion, kind of storyline is not like the best way to start a service when there's kids in the room. We will talk about it, and we will do the crucifixion stuff.
Yeah.
But we just don't want to start there. We feel like the energy in the room will feel like they're all going to be excited. It's Easter Sunday morning. Kids are going to be laughing and running around and like Easter eggs and the whole thing. And then if we start the service with like a really low tone, and like Jesus' death and all that, it'll probably feel like a little bit of like a hard left turn for them. So we have started planning Easter. So North Point is, again, like I said, the 3 campuses that are all going to do something together. Typically Easter is really interesting. Easter is usually it's a little bit more simple than what people think it might be. Like it's a little bit more, minus like the opener aspect, it's actually pretty like classic, I would say, in terms of like, you don't want to like, I don't know that you necessarily want to like go all out like with just this insane production that then people like are like, oh my gosh, it's amazing, and then they come back next week and it's like none of that happens and it's like back to normal. So it's almost better to just kind of do your normal thing, like do normal songs that you normally would do that people know, but maybe have like 1 or 2 elements that might be and feel special. So North Point is going to open with, there will be a video, like basically like the screen will have a logo on it and it'll kind of be animated. So it'll be moving a little bit. And then that will basically turn into the opening video. And the video basically is going to go through like, it's like an animated looking thing. And it'll go through the story of Jesus, like being coming as a king to serve and not to be served. And it'll kind of be a voiceover that talks through all this stuff. There'll be different scenes that are animated, and then ultimately crucified, and then ultimately he raises from the dead. So they're going to tell the whole story, the whole passion story at the very beginning of the service within like 3 or 4 minutes. That video will probably be 3 or 4 minutes, and they'll literally start from Jesus coming to the earth, what he did, the magnitude of what he accomplished on earth, his crucifixion and his resurrection. Like they will cover all of that. And then they're going to go into a song. They're going to do a mashup of Agnus Dei and King of Kings. So that song, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. They're going to do that and then go into King of Kings. And I think they're going to wrap back around and hit Agnus Dei again. So it'll start really soft, really low, really pad driven, build, and it'll just end with like this, massive, like Jesus is alive, and it'll be great. And then a host comes up right after that and, welcomes everybody, glad you're here, all that sort of stuff. And then they'll go into a worship set after that. So it'll probably be 2 or 3 songs. I don't know. Every campus will do something a little different. Again, then it's title pack, like message title package, which should feel like an extension of the opening video. It'll look the same. It'll kind of pick up with after Jesus rose from the dead, here's what happened. It's probably only going to be like a minute long, and it may not even have a voiceover with it. It may just be like, it honestly may just look like the rest of the video that started at the beginning. Andy will come up, he'll do his message, and his message will start with basically like the assumption that everybody in the room knows Jesus rose from the dead. So now what do we do with that? That's kind of where the message starts. And then at the end of the message, everybody will do a closing song, one of North Point's songs, God is Love. And after that, so God is Love. And then it's kind of up to whatever campuses want to do beyond that. Like if they just go straight and dismiss and thanks for being here, if they do any more songs after that or whatever. So, but Andy specifically was like, if you're taking my message, I'm going to lead us to this song. So, and they probably will create some sort of like video element that goes along with God is Love. For East Cobb, one of the things that I felt like was, like I said, the opening thing felt a little too like serious. And this was one of the things that Ben had asked me earlier. This is one of the questions, like, how do you wrestle with the lament of Good Friday with the victory of Sunday? And like, you're preparing a time of worship with people who are believers, but also people who are non-believers. I think there's kind of two answers to this. One, I think either way you answer it kind of depends on how you view your congregation. Like, I don't think there's a universal answer that solves it. I think that Easter is a really good, I think a church gets like, I think a church that specifically is geared toward unchurched people, like helping unchurched people feel like they belong, gets a bit of a pass on Easter to like not have to go out of their way to make unchurched people feel like they belong. In other words, I think it's okay to like tell the story of the crucifixion and like, talk about the passion narrative of Jesus. One of the ways that we've kind of addressed this in the past, we won't do it this year because our school spring break is the week of Easter. So everybody's going to be out of town. But last year we did this, and a lot of years we do this. We will actually do a Good Friday service, and really it's geared toward insiders. Like, everyone's welcome, all that, but we treat it kind of like a night of worship where it's like, we're not marketing this to get like outsiders here. We're really doing this for believers who want to like lament and remember the cross and like really get like introspective about that. So that's one of the ways that we've kind of wrestled or like managed that tension of like, yeah, like we need to spend time and like think about the cross and Good Friday and like, what does it mean? And we will just do it on Good Friday, and we will, share communion together and all that sort of stuff. And that way on Easter, then we kind of come in with like a new, like we're kind of more in the like resurrection part of it, This year, like I said, a lot of schools around here are on spring break. So for North Point and the thing they're creating, it's definitely going to have like the whole thing at the top. I feel like for our campus, because like what I said earlier, there's kids in the room. The room is not just, it's not going to be like a dark theater that it's just going to have a very different vibe to it than like at North Point. So for us, it felt like we would not be matching the tone of the emotions of people walking in the room on Easter Sunday. And we wanted to make sure that we weren't like starting in a place that like no one else emotionally was going to be. So we're going to do a different opener. We're going to start with, we have like a kind of a small choir. We've got about 10 people who are going to sing. So we're going to actually start with some arrangement, I don't know, we got to figure it out, of like kind of a cappella, maybe even like old church, like B3 organ vibe of the hymn, joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, Lord of love. And we'll probably do like a couple of verses of that. Choir will kind of sing, and it'll get big dynamically. And then it's going to go into a track that will build. And we're actually going to go into that Phil Wickham song. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. People love that one. It's really popular for us. And it instills and enlists like this feeling of happiness and joy and like, yes, like we're here. So I think that's going to help us start with a bit more of like we're really coming at it with like a real positive thing, not really worried about like the cross or anything like that on the front end of the service. To me, that answers the question of like, how do I get there? Because I'm still thinking through the funnel of, I want the funnel to be as wide as possible. And again, I think there's an argument to be made that like on Easter, you get a little bit of a pass. And the way that I look at it, with what North Point's doing, their funnel it's almost like two funnels in one. They're like, their opener is a funnel in itself. And then they like reset the funnel and start over after the opener is done. And it's kind of weird if you think about it that, maybe it's weird if you think about it, but that's kind of the way I rationalize in my head. It's like for Easter, for Christmas, this is like this. They kind of have a funnel, do an opener, that story arc is complete, and then they kind of reset it and start over. And it's great, and people love it. And I'm not saying we would never do it. It just felt like the wrong thing for us in this season of our church, and the just in particular the vibe of the room. So last year our Easter service was outside. We had to do it at like a local park, and we had like 1,500 people show up at this park, and it was like bananas and madness. And I was so glad that we didn't do some real serious, like down thing, because people were like, it was sunny, it was beautiful, people were outside. I mean, people were having like the best time. And so we like started with Glorious Day, and people were like, this is amazing. Like, it was like really fun. So I kind of just felt like that was where we were with it this year. Anyway, so then for us, like I said, we're going to do Joyful, House of the Lord, big fun. It'll be a lot of energy. And then we'll have our pastor and probably his wife, they host together a lot. They'll come up and do like a welcome, and like very, first timer. If you're first time, glad you're here. For us, we have a lot we can talk about. Like we're, breaking ground on this building, and like, we're going to be like, we're building a new home, and this is our first time in this venue, but we're super thankful for the school to let us use it, that sort of stuff. And then we'll go into some songs. I'm not real sure what songs we're going to do yet. But I think eventually in the worship set, we're going to get to Son of Suffering, which is a new one for us. It's been around for a while, but that Bethel song. And that song, I think, might actually be the thing that sets up the video that North Point is using at the beginning. I think we're actually going to play it there. Again, I have to wait and see like what it looks like and feels like, and if I can like edit it and make it fit, because they won't do any of that for us. But that's kind of what I'm thinking, is like, basically before we get to the message, I want to go through the passion narrative and like get us through the cross and the resurrection. But like, I want to do that after we're like emotionally, and I'm going to use music as the way to do that, but emotionally we're in the point, in the place where now I can tell you about like the magnitude of what Jesus did, and I can tell you about his crucifixion, and I can tell you about his resurrection, and then we would be able to go into the message from there. So yeah, anyway, that was a lot of words.
That's brilliant. No, that's really good. I think that thing about paying attention to what the emotion is going to be already in the room, because rooms they have an emotion, don't they? When a crowd of people come into a room, they have an emotion already, and not trying to swim against that. I think so often churches in our context will watch North Point online or whoever online, and they do often start with those really big, epic, moody moments, especially over Easter and things. And I think lots of churches that are listening to this will be in a similar context to you, where they're in a school hall, or they're in their normal venue isn't a theatre that you can totally black out or whatever it is. And lots of them will be doing it with children as well. That's kind of lots of our Easter services will be all age things. So yeah, just I think paying attention to whatever the mood is going to be already, and not trying to fight that, but trying to make the most of that and get into the emotion of that. I think that's brilliant, really good. So how are you have you got sort of an idea to transition from the upbeat, joyful, exciting stuff into the sort of more somber, emotional?
I mean, that to me is I think that's easier accomplished with music. So after the opener, the joyful stuff and the welcome, we'll do another kind of maybe upbeat-ish song, maybe kind of a mid-tempo song. But the goal is to then get us like through that, we'll call it 2-song worship set, maybe 3 songs, to get us like in a more like pointed emotional space. And that's why I feel like Son of Suffering is the one that's going to do it for me. I think it's going to be, I don't know. I can't decide, or it may be better served after. I don't know. Part of it for me is I'm kind of waiting to see like what this video like content looks like. And I know that's hard because I don't know if y'all even get to use it or not, but this is part of the problem of like being a campus, honestly, is like you get access to stuff, but you don't get access to it until like almost like the last minute. And a lot of times that's why a long time ago campuses started going, hey, we have enough resources. Can we just do our own thing? Because we can't wait for, and that's kind of what I feel now. My tension is I don't have a lot of resources to like make anything new. So what I've found in the last 3 years of us being connected to North Point is instead of me making something new, I probably can tailor what they've made to fit into our service. And it takes a little bit of creative, like sometimes editing, sometimes, you know, revamping or rethinking. Like I've even taken stuff and like, I've been able to like pull the voiceover off of something, or had them send me the voiceover separately and like rescored the video because the track and the score that they had didn't match the tone of what we were doing. Stuff like that, where it's like I can solve those problems a little easier to me than I can like I'm going to come up with a whole new idea and like start from scratch. Like that to me feels a little overwhelming, which similarly, like a lot of that stuff, like we pull stuff from online websites all the time, like, you know, Church Motion Graphics and Igniter and all this stuff. We kind of we think still like small church, whereas North Point thinks, oh, we have to make it ourselves. And sometimes, and it's great what they make. But sometimes I feel like I'm like, yes, but like I need something quicker, or I need to solve the problem faster or whatever. So anyway, all that to say, I will use the worship set, the like actual batch of songs, whatever those are. We'll probably do like, I would say at some point we'll probably do Living Hope, like classic Easter, like, and again, the goal of Easter for me is like do stuff that people know. Don't introduce a lot of new stuff, try to do like really familiar stuff. Living Hope is probably going to be done. We may do King of Kings. Actually, I like the King of Kings Agnus Dei thing because there will be a lot of people who have been around here. At least there'll be a lot of people, even if they aren't in church, they've been around church and they've probably heard that Agnus Dei chorus. They just don't know what it's called or what it is, but it's like really like familiar and common. At the end of this service, when we do the closer, we'll do God is Love. Even though we're not using Andy's message, our pastor will probably tailor his message to be kind of the same. We'll do God is Love because it's a fantastic song, but we're probably going to tag something at the end of it that feels really familiar, like How Great Is Our God, or How He Loves, or something that's like, oh, I've heard this, or the chorus of Jesus Paid It All. Oh, praise the one who paid, something like that even the person who's like, yeah, I've been around church before, but I'm not, you know, they would know it, because I want the last thing that people hear to be something like that they know, that is very, very familiar to them. And that, because I feel like that's way stickier and memorable than, it's like if the band, your favorite band, you know, you go to a concert and your favorite band didn't play their big hit at the end of the night, right? Like that's what they all do. They do an encore and they play their big hits at the end. It's because they want it to be memorable. And if they came out and did some song that I never heard, and it's like a new song, I'd be so disappointed to be like, wait, what? Why are you doing this song? So, yeah, anyway, that's kind of, music to me is the way that I can easily steer the emotional like atmosphere of the room. And yeah, so that's how we'll get to that video section.
That's brilliant. And you say leaving people at the end of it with a song that's familiar to them. Is there an emotion tied around that as well, or is it just anything familiar?
I think, you know, our pastor and I were talking about this yesterday. I think the thing that we want people to feel is praise. Like we want to, that's why How Great Is Our God actually kind of stuck out with us. Like not like joyful, I mean, joy and happiness is a good emotion, but we're more thinking like we want people to be like, thank you, God, for what you've done. Like more of a like umbrella of like praise for what he's done, versus like I'm sitting and remembering or like thinking about it. It's more of like, I want to like actually praise God for what he's done. That was kind of where our heads went with that, which I think is good because it will probably feel joyful. But it won't it won't necessarily be like a, you know, glorious day. Like it won't necessarily be like a huge upbeat song. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And have you got this is a pre-prepared question, so I'm sorry for throwing it at you at random.
Oh, you're good.
Have you got like a next step that you want people to take after Easter? Is there like a push at the end? Is it come back next week, or have you got, what's that for you guys?
Yeah, that's a good question. For us specifically, it's probably this is going to sound dumb, but it's probably like, hey, make sure you're on our mailing list and make sure you're following us on social. Of course we want them, you know, we'll tell them, hey, you know, we meet regularly at this, you know, at 4:00 in the afternoon at this church, and we'd love to see you there. And if you enjoyed what, you know, is today, like, this is what happens every week, and like all that. But I think all of that's kind of understood. I think more than that, like, we want people to be engaging with us, like just being on our email list and stuff is so valuable to us, like having that data. You know, a good answer would be like, we want people to engage with some way of supporting the community, right? So like, and I don't have this, but like, if I like our mission, basically, our, like, that we say every week, is our mission is to love where we live. And so we are always doing like things where we're raising money or doing service projects or whatever. Like, there's constantly things happening in the community that we as the church are doing. And we find that people engage and connect with that like instantly, right? So you can easily say like, hey, this school needs 500 backpacks. We got to get 500 backpacks. And like next Sunday, there will be 500 backpacks plus, you know, $5,000. You know, it's just like insane. People are just like, they want to help the community be better. So that would actually be a good one for us. That makes me think, like, I don't know that I have that, but like some sort of social community thing that makes me go, yeah, I want to like participate in that. We actually have one, this may be a good way to do it. Actually, we have a thing that we just started. We haven't really done much with it, but we're calling it Love Where You Live Teams. And we've created basically like rolling. It's kind of a twofold thing. It's a way for people to get connected to other people. So almost small group kind of, but like not that regular. It's more just like a way for you to get to know other people. But you do it through like, again, like there's a school that needs something, or there's a family that like their house burned down recently. Well, we have like basically a team of people that can like immediately go and like, hey, we're going to go like get you new furniture, and we're going to go get you clothes, and we're going to make sure you have like all your needs met. Someone, you know, a family member died recently. Well, we have a team that's like, hey, we've already set up a meal train, and like we've got like your meals covered for the next week, and like stuff like that. It's ways that people who like want to be involved and engaged with doing good in the community can like easily do it. Like, because there's so many ways to do it. It's more of just like finding it is what we've found for us. So maybe it's that. Maybe for us, we should say like, hey, we've got a way that you can connect and make this place better. You know, this community, you can actually love where you live by like joining one of these teams. That actually makes me think.
Yeah, there you go. That's cool. Yeah, it's great that yeah, not just necessarily a comeback next Sunday, but we just want you to get involved in this community and what we are passionate about. And yeah, that's awesome. That's really good.
Yeah, that's a good question. The last one, how do you adapt your language to those who are unfamiliar with church when all the songs around Easter are around blood, death, and lambs being slain?
It's true, isn't it?
Really, we actually stopped doing years ago. We stopped doing, not everybody, but just some of us stopped doing that song Lion and the Lamb. It's coming on the clouds. Because of how like weird the language is, like for people who are not church. Like I was definitely in the camp of like, oh, this song rips, like I love it. But then as you think about it, you're like, no, like there's so many words in here and phrases that just need to be explained that it's not even worth. I don't even have time to explain it to people. Like it's not even worth doing. So it was tough because it was like, man, this song is so good. And like, it was a new, like energetic song that people needed. Yeah, I think I just recently actually rediscovered some language from the funnel, and one of the things was that Andy talks about a lot in his book Deep and Wide and that service programming chapter and stuff, but singing to outsiders, singing to insiders, but speaking to outsiders. So I mean, again, with Easter, you have kind of a grace from people that are like, yeah, we're going to sing about the cross and we're going to sing about blood and all that. But I do think it's so important to be aware that there are people in there that are like, what are we singing? For example, that song, There's a Fountain, there's like an old hymn called There's a Fountain of Blood or whatever. I don't even remember what it is. I just remember hearing it in seminary and I was like, what? This is the grossest, weirdest language. So like being conscious of that and like what you are singing, and maybe taking time, not every song, not all the time, but like when you set up a song or when you have a bridge that has a long instrumental section or whatever, and just speaking like a 30-second piece of like what these lyrics mean, like why we're singing this specific lyric about the blood of Jesus, or what does it mean that the lamb was slain, or whatever the line is in the song. So again, not feeling like you have to do it for every song and every moment, but being intentional about thinking through, hey, here are the songs that I feel like we're supposed to do. And now I've read through and looked at all the lyrics, and I've even gone through and marked off like that verse, lyric in that one verse is weird, lyric in that bridge is a little weird. Is there a way that I could like address that by speaking into it, and making sure that like the people who are not normal, or this is not normal for them, don't feel like we're singing weird songs about blood. So, yeah.
That's great. That would be a challenge to do every week, wouldn't it? To go through the roster of songs that we've currently got and just highlight all the things that you personally think don't get
like,
that. That's a bit
strange.
strange.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Wow.